going to take your quadratics test this Thursday.
We only get 1 week.
We're in a good spot on quadratics. But Unit 4 on exponentials, we're going to go back. And we're going to say, hey, let's improve what we used to know about exponentials and do better. And I'm going to put some of that same stuff on your Unit 5 test so you guys can show that growth. The majority of the EOC is about linear, exponential, and quadratic functions. If you know these three things, you can and will be successful. So let's start off easy. Linear functions. Started talking about them in 7th grade. A couple of things you need to remember. They have a constant rate, which means they add or subtract the same amount. The graphs are straight lines.
Can you hats?
A little bit, but I'm going to be going back and forth left and right. So constant rate, adding and subtracting, and they create straight lines. And in 7th grade, you learn for the first time slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And that's one way to write a linear equation. And then the other way that I taught y'all this year is point slope forms. Anybody remember it?
Y minus y equals 0 times x minus x.
Now, you do have to have that memorized. You need to have all of this nonsense completely memorized, committed to memory. Cool. Then, I taught you about exponential functions. So before we get there, let's look at this graph for number 1. How do you know this is not linear? You guys calling out, but yeah, we're all, it's not straight, it's not linear. Everybody say that, you'll remember it.
It's not straight, it's not linear.
This graph is exponential. Exponential functions have this curve. They like get bigger, 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 like real steep. Or they decay. Okay, so increase or decrease. And the equation we use for that, y equals a times b to the x minus 1. Where a is the first term, and b always goes in parentheses, is the ratio. I'm even going to write the word ratio in parentheses, so we remember, like, ratios in parentheses every single time. Cool? No matter the function, the first thing I always do is identify the rate. What's the first thing I always do?
Identify the rate.
Technically with exponentials it's called a ratio, so the rate or ratio. I'm going to look at this thing, and I'm seeing like, man, that's not linear. Let's find a ratio. Here's how, and well, I'm going to zoom in as much as I can, but just look at your paper. The first like place I can see a clear point at, I'm going to circle, is that point 2, 1. Okay? And then another point I can clearly see on here is the point 3, 2. And the last one I really can see is 4, 4. Now this question is straight from your Unit 4 test. Only about 30% of us got this question right. Our mistake, we picked questions where the ratio was outside the parentheses. So let's fix that mistake. First things first, look at your y values. What is that ratio? Call it out.
So
2 plus times 2, what are we doing? Times 2. So right now, I'm just going to know, hey, that ratio is 2. I'm going to put that in parentheses so I remember, like, the ratio's in parentheses, and I can immediately cross off what answer choices. Those have a ratio of a half. That would be dividing by 2. That's not what we're doing. Next, I'm going to look at the values of each one of these. Circle this minus 3 right here. That's saying that x value is 3, and when x is 3, y is 1. Is that true? When x is 3, is y 1?
no.
Can't be A. Jump down to E. It says when x is 1, y is 1. Is that true?
No.
No, look, when x is 1, y, you can circle right here. Y is a half. With me so far? So it can't be E. Part B. Ratio's 2, and then it's saying the 0th term is 1/4. Now, I'm not really sure, but I can check. Instead of multiplying by 2, I'll go backwards. I'll divide everything by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Divided by 2 is 1. Divided by 2 is a half. Divided by 2 is 4. So, yeah, that works. Now I want to pause right here. These are the type of problems I need y'all to get every time. We do need to talk about free response questions. Those are absolutely on the EOC. It's one of the big differences between the ACT and the EOC. You're going to have to show a deeper level of understanding by answering FRQs. But before we get there, let's get these more simplistic problems right. Turn the page to page 4. I am looking that you're identifying the rate or ratio for each one of these first. Let's say it again. Identify the rate or ratio for each one of these before trying to write the function. One last thing. Typo on question 1. You can just scratch off C, D, and E because they're just repeats. It's either A or B. My bad on that. 5 minutes on the clock. I want to see y'all answer all 4 of these questions. Show me what you can do. As I go around, I'm going to say like, hey, did you find the ratio? It's either A or it's B. They're like the same thing. Exactly.
But B is the same thing as E.
It'd be 1 over 3. Yeah. Good. So, Rayana's got a ratio. Ria's got a ratio. Find that ratio. How are the Y values changing as X increases by 1?